Imagine you're deep in the woods, miles from society, and something isn't quite right. The crackle of the fire is the only sound you hear, but then footsteps, maybe a whisper, or something far worse. Today, I'll be sharing 2 terrifying encounters campers had while on their trip to the mountains. A few years ago, my girlfriend and I, having hiked several other parts of the Appalachian Trail, decided we wanted to tackle the southern portion of Virginia's trail. It is about 166 miles long and runs through the George Washington and Jefferson National Forests, from Roanoke County to Pearisburg in Giles County. This is definitely one of the more remote and less traveled parts of the trail, which is exactly what we were looking for. We gathered our gear and made our way to the start of the Virginia Creeper Trail to begin our journey. We had planned for our trip to end in Damascus, figuring that by the time we got there, we'll be more than ready to return to our own beds. It was early October, and the changing of the leaves and colors were amazing. The air was crisp and cool, perfect hiking weather with beautiful scenery. The majority of the trip was pretty uneventful, just your typical hike, but our last couple of nights is where things got weird. On this portion of the trail, you were supposed to camp on the trail or a designated shelter. However, we didn't really want to run into other people and didn't want anyone coming up on us in the middle of the night, so we decided to ignore those suggestions and find our own little spot off the trail. A little searching around, and we found a spot a little ways off the trail in the middle of a small clearing. It was perfect. We set up camp, cooked some food, talked for a while, then snuggled up and went to sleep for the night. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I was awakened by my girlfriend shaking me and telling me, "Get your gun, someone is outside walking around our tent." She explained that she had woken up to what sounded like someone running a knife or something along the side of the tent while circling us. When hiking, I carry a 1911 and a judge with me. You never know who or what exactly you might run into on such a long hike in a remote location. I grabbed the judge from my pack, and then we sat silently, listening for any sounds. I got the flashlight and silently made my way out of the tent. Our fire had went out, so it was nearly pitch black. Illuminated by only the dim glow of the October moon, I told my girlfriend to stay put while I checked it out. I didn't flick the flashlight on right away so as to not give away that I was out of the tent and have it become a shining beacon of my location. Instead, I waited to hear more noise. After a few minutes, snap, crunch, crack. It sounded like it was bipedal based on the way the steps were paced. I turned on the flashlight and flooded the area with light. I thought I saw someone move behind a tree. I yelled out and told them to go away and that I was armed. I kept the light on the area with my gun drawn and slowly approached towards the area where I thought I saw the figure. Then, from my right, I heard what sounds like someone running away through the woods. I spin and faced my light that way. And then from the original spot, heard who or whatever was there take off into the woods. There's no way I was giving chase, so I returned to the campsite. I tell my girlfriend about what happened, and I end up sitting guard outside the tent in the darkness until daybreak. In the morning, I looked around a bit for signs of who or whatever it was, and I discovered a boot print in some soft, moist dirt not far from our tent. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't my girl's. This freaked me out as it confirmed that someone, perhaps more than one, was sulking outside our tent in the dark. I kept it to myself because I didn't want to freak out my girl more than she already was. At this point, we were pretty deep in and still had 2 days left. That day, we walked a little faster than normal and covered as much ground as possible. When it came time to set up camp, I found a spot near a cliff where we could place the tent in a small overhang and prevent anyone from coming up behind us. The whole day up to this point, I had a feeling we were being followed. I had no confirmation of this, as I hadn't seen or heard anyone else, but it was just a gut feeling. We set up camp and made some food, then retreated to the tent. I gave my girl the 1911 and I kept the judge right next to me, and I assured her that if I slept at all, it would be with one eye open. After a while, she drifted off to sleep and I stayed awake listening to the sounds of the woods at night. I was awake for a few hours, just waiting to see if anything was going to happen. At some point, I guess my exhaustion caught up with me and I drifted off. I awoke some time later to what sounded like someone going through our stuff outside the tent. I grabbed my gun and woke my girlfriend, shushing her to be quiet. From the faint glow of the fire, I could see someone's silhouette against the tent. There was really someone out there. I yelled out to them something along the lines of, "We're armed, get the fuck out of here." They dropped what they were doing and bolted. I came out of the tent, gun drawn and ready to shoot someone. Our stuff was strewn all about. They had rummaged through quite a bit of our stuff. I walked to the edge of the woods in the direction whoever was out there had fled. There was a creek nearby, and I walked to the edge where there was a small trail running alongside it. Down the creek I could see a light. It looked like a lantern the way it flickered. Then I saw 3 more emerge from the other side of the woods. I told my girlfriend to start packing up whatever she could, and we were leaving now. We packed up everything of value, left the tent and a few other items, and headed back onto the trail in the middle of the night. I kept hearing people talking off in the woods and hearing branches snap for quite some ways. I kept looking behind us every few seconds to make sure nobody was coming up on us. It was completely nerve-wracking. If something happened, we were still a long ways from anywhere and quite literally on our own. Since we hadn't seen another hiker the entire time we had been out there, I really felt like we were in serious danger. We had been walking for quite some time when I heard something in the woods behind us. As we rounded a corner, I turned around and saw someone step out onto the trail and just stand there watching us. It was just as the sun was coming up and barely any light. I couldn't make out any features, just the silhouette. I stopped and looked at them for a second and asked them who they were and what they wanted. They just stood there silently, watching us, and then turned and walked back into the woods. We picked up the pace and kept going, looking back every so often. We didn't see them again, but my gut told me they were still there for quite a ways. We eventually reached the end of the trail and got to where we had parked my girlfriend's car, extremely exhausted. We made it out of the Virginia woods without becoming a meal for a clan of cannibalistic, inbred hillbillies, which is what I pictured happening in my head the whole time. I have no idea who they were or what they wanted. Maybe it was someone just messing with us? Maybe it really was a clan of deformed hillbillies who were hunting us. I will never know, because I will not be returning to find out. I posted this in Missing 411, and in my planning of my upcoming camping trips, felt the urge to post it here, mostly a copy and paste with an update on one of my family members. This may be a ramble of thoughts, but after recently stumbling on this sub, I finally felt a place I could offer something that my family and I experienced a few years ago that to this day gives me a shiver. I have been camping, solo backpacking, and hunting my whole life in Oregon, and felt comfortable in the woods and have a deep respect for nature. A few years ago, my wife, daughter, and 2 German shepherds went camping north of Mount Jefferson, Oregon. It was not an established campsite, just a nice horseshoe off a USFS road that had flat grounds, full trees, and a fire pit. The first night, my daughter wanted to sleep by herself in a 2-man tent right next to ours. It was maybe 2 feet away from me and my wife's tent. We made the male German shepherd sleep, Guts is his name, with her in the tent. The whole first night, neither my wife and I could sleep. We both heard footsteps, and they were heavy, not like typical forest critters scampering around at night. I was well armed because I was paranoid from reading recently about a dad in California who was shot and killed in a tent next to his 2 infant daughters. Needless to say, both my wife and I had 2 pistols and my rifle with me. The dogs are great at detection, and that is why I felt my daughter could sleep alone, because Guts is completely fearless and nothing would lay a hand on her without a battle to the death. All in all, nothing but bad vibes and loud footsteps occurred that night, which I ultimately decided was deer or maybe some elk. Day 2, morning. We go for a walk down the road, and maybe 300 feet away, I see an abandoned road where a rusted gate post was covered in vegetation. Something of blue color caught my eye, and Guts immediately take off running down this abandoned road. My heart begins to race because I think it's another family camping like us, and he is going to get himself shot or scared some innocent people to death, so I chase after him as fast as I can, and the rest follow. He stops after 20 feet into the road and me yelling his name, but I have covered just enough distance to see that there's nobody there and something is off about the sight. I yelled, "Hello? Is anyone there? Sorry about the dog." I got no response. My curiosity gets the best of me, and I have to see what the site conditions were. As I get closer, I know something is wrong. It had all the necessities for a camping, including a cooler, propane burner, tent, blankets, folding table, but every single item had been completely destroyed, smashed and torn from what appeared to be claw marks. We all walked around in circles, puzzled why anyone would leave all their camping gear behind, including an expensive REI tent. I figured, well, someone had left in a hurry and animals got to the rest as the only logical explanation. Still, a propane tank and cooler were flattened by something, and it certainly wasn't snow-packed with tree coverage in that spot. As the afternoon rolls in, me and my daughter are playing boko ball at the campsite, and my wife goes walking maybe 70 feet north to do her business. I do not have direct line of sight on her, but all of a sudden, I see Guts make a mad dash straight towards her. Normally, he would always be with me unless he is called over, and she didn't call for him. His speed and focus caught my attention, and I knew something weird was happening. So I ran over there, and my wife starts jogging at me, and I immediately drew my pistol. Guts has completely continued running into the forest another 100 feet before I called him and he stopped. My other dog, Leah, who never misses the opportunity to be the pack leader, is not taking point. I have had her for now 7 years, and this was the first time in her life she refused to leave my daughter's side. She was full hair, raised and attached to us at the hip. Again, anytime we hike or play, Leah is up front bossing everything in her path and pauses to look to see where we are and continues. I asked my wife what happened, and she said, "I was trying to pee and all of a sudden I felt all my hairs raised. I know someone was watching me, and then I saw Guts running towards me and I just got up to move towards you." We spent 10 minutes looking for signs of anything, and saw no trails, broken branches, nothing to point to what and where something went. We decide to spend one more night since it's too late to pack up and drive, but we will all be in one big tent together. Before going to bed, I put a rope with a makeshift coin alarm around the perimeter of our campsite. I used a mint can and some coins and keys from our truck and zip-tied it so anything hitting the rope gave a little jingle. Very unsophisticated, but it put my wife at ease. As I go to tie my last corner off at a tree near our tent, our third mystery item unveils itself. It looks like someone has done the exact same thing I have done with the rope that was so old and brown I didn't see it at first. It was broken and only a few pieces remained, but sure enough, it was tied at roughly the same height, 8 to 10 inches, off the ground and even had a few rusted washers on it. I immediately felt someone had stayed here before and put the same makeshift warning system on the same tree I am about, maybe 10 to 15 years ago based on the condition of the rope. Perhaps my paranoia has now reached a new height, but I had to make sure the girls felt we were safe. At the time, the only thing I could think of was when evening came around, I made them sit in the trunk and I fired a clip from my .45 into the dirt as a signal to whatever was out there that we were armed. I reassured the girls that anyone listening to that would now know that we have 2 wolves, we're armed, and we're too risky of a target. That made me feel confident we could sleep safely. That night we heard no footsteps, and the dogs never perked up or barked. We left early the next morning. Fast forward to today, and I watched the Amazon Missing 411 Hunted documentary. I noticed a cluster located near where we camped that weekend, and a flood of dread rushed over me as I thought of that mysterious abandoned campsite with the ripped tent, smashed cooler, and cooktop. We've been camping since and have enjoyed the beauty of the Northwest, but there was something about that place, something that possibly took or harmed someone else less than 300 feet away from where we camped. We all thank our lucky stars that Guts was doing his thing so well that afternoon. Update from original posting. Guts is no longer with us. He has journeyed into the next phase, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about him and how he saved us. He was a warrior, and his new brother Geronimo has his spirit. Hi again. This is my second upload on this little New Year's resolution YouTube channel of mine. So thank you for listening. I hope the audio was okay. But please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!